And mark it down. It is inevitable. It is inescapable. It is always true. When Jesus becomes an active participant in our life, we begin to see through the lies of materialism, and we get empowered to love people in that sacrificial, generous kind of way. Now, what I wanted to do was I wanted to end the message here. But I had to be honest. Why is it that there are followers of Jesus who I think really want and try to have Jesus be an active part of their life, and they still struggle with generosity? Because I don't want to paint the picture that if you struggle with generosity, it's because Jesus isn't active in your life. Because he may be, and yet you still struggle. As do I. And I was like, okay, so what's the deal here? God, what's the final step in actually freeing us to be able to walk this path of nobility? And this is the idea that occurred to me. The church must play its role in helping others down the path of nobility. It's like, here's what I believe the Bible is teaching. It's like we have the natural DNA from God to be generous. And yet because of the materialism all around us and the selfishness inherent in us, we struggle. Enter Jesus. On the inside, he begins to work powerfully to see through the lies of materialism and to become a generous person by really loving in a sacrificial kind of way. But all the impulses that Jesus is working up on the inside, listen, by the design of God, only come to fruition when it happens in the right environment on the outside. And the environment that is to nurture what God is doing on the inside is supposed to happen in the church. In that collection of relationships, that network of friendships, as we co-labor together to advance the purposes of God in our world. As we do that and we enter into each other's lives, it's in that environment of grace and love and support that what Jesus is doing on the inside can fully come to fruition on the outside. If you were to venture down to the Blue Ridge Mountains, down in it's upstate southern border of North Carolina, actually not far from the border of South Carolina and not very far from Georgia, you would find a place called the Jocassee Gorges. They're very deep gorges in the Blue Ridge, the southern Blue Ridge Mountains. And one of the reasons that they're so deep is that the mountains there really form a watershed. And some of the water ends up flowing down and emptying in the Gulf of Mexico, and some end up flowing down the other side of the mountain range and into the Atlantic Ocean. And there are very deep gorges that have been cut. And the Jocassee Gorge is in just this very unique place. It is so steep and in just such a temperate climate that as the heat rises up from the steep walls of that canyon, it acts like a chimney. It hits the atmosphere and it just rains all the time. They get between 80 and 100 inches of rain a year just in the Jocassee Gorge. And because of that, some of the rarest plants in all the world are found. 63 varieties of vegetation that you rarely find anywhere else in the world are found there. There are certain plants found only in the tropics that are also found in the Jocassee Gorge. Why? A unique and perfect environment for those plants to grow. Another environment, it doesn't happen. That environment, they flourish. The church is sort of like that. There's this powerful work that Jesus is doing inside of us as he leads us, amongst other things, down the path to nobility. But for that to really come to fruition, then we need to recognize that it's in the atmosphere of the church, the community of faith, that we fully become actually generous people. It's the way God designed it to be. In fact, the church, I think, is supposed to do at least a couple of things. Is to inspire faith. It's to encourage us to, yes, say no to the lies of materialism. Give it away. Trust God. It'll work. But get this, the church is also supposed to teach the scriptures. I mean, what does God have to say about money, things, possessions? What does he have to say about how we balance self-interest and the interests of others? What does God have to say about stewarding or managing what God has given to us in a way where, yes, our needs are met, but yes, we become noble people, generously giving our stuff in order to bless people and change the world. And if this does not happen in the environment of the Christian community, then all of us will be stifled in our quest to nobility. This leads us to the fourth and final strategic initiative for 2010 here at Connections. I'm going to state it this way. It's to free people to walk the path toward nobility by helping them to become truly generous. See, here's what I already know. You want to be. It matters to you. What I know is you want to leverage your resources to help change the world. You want to use it to advance the purposes of God in the lives of people. You want to use this to bring a greater measure of justice to this world and a greater measure of relief to those who truly suffer. You want it, I want it. And I'm saying let's be the church, a community of faith. And let's inspire faith in each other. And let's also make sure we understand how God says we can balance love for self and love for others, self-interest, others' interest, in a way that we can steward our resources like God says, and we can be as generous as God wants us to be. What would happen if we just all got out of debt? What would happen if we unleashed the windows of heaven and the blessing of God as never before because we chose we were going to do with money what God said? It's the one area in all the Bible he said, you want to prove me? Prove me there. His words. What would happen? Listen. There are people who need to hear the good news, and a part of getting the good news out there is to fund it. There are people who are suffering, and we have got to do something to relieve some of their pain. There is injustice going on in the world today, and we've got to do something to help end it and bring a greater degree of justice and righteousness to our world in the here and now. And dare I say it, there is a building to be built that will become a ministry center from which the hope that only comes from God can go forth in greater impact and power than it ever has before. And all of that requires that we just walk the path to nobility. And I think you, like me, we want to walk it.